Oh, hello, everyone. Most cardiovascular assessments are population-based. Now, population-based means that decisions are based on what works for the average person and not necessarily the person that is sitting in front of us. Now, because of this population-based approach, many people receive the same general recommendations and they receive the same medications despite having different biology and different symptoms. Now, this approach not only does it miss important diagnosis, but it can also delay detection, and most importantly, it can expose some people to unnecessary side effects. So let's see what we have here today. So today we will learn the difference between population-based care and personalized care, what drives cardiovascular plaque formation, how do we know what's driving high lipid particles in our arteries? Is it due to overproduction? Is it due to poor clearance by the liver? Is it due to excess cholesterol absorption from the intestine? Or is it due to a genetic component under the name of Lp(a)? And last, I'll be presenting you an automated cardiovascular tool that will show you what is driving plaque formation, and it will provide guidance on how to lower your risk and stabilize plaque based off of your labs, your data, and not somebody else's. So let's start with how plaque forms. Let's understand that first and right into it. So first thing to mention, ApoB is not part of the standard lipid panel. You have to ask for it separately. Let's say you got it measured and it came up high. Now, it's important to understand what that number means. This ApoB level in the bloodstream is the net result of how many ApoB particles are produced versus how many are cleared. Now, when that balance is compromised, meaning production exceeding clearance, that means that lipid particles are spending more time in circulation in the bloodstream than they should. And this increases the chance of them slipping through the artery walls and forming a plaque. So the goal is not to eliminate production. The goal is for clearance to keep up with production or keep pace with production so that ApoB particles do not accumulate. So the question comes to mind, why does the liver need to produce these lipid particles? And the answer to that is simply because the liver needs to export fats in the form of cholesterol or triglycerides to avoid fat accumulation. And by avoiding fat accumulation, it avoids what's called fatty liver disease. So this is important. So let's say after ApoB-containing lipid particles are cleared by the liver, the liver has to decide now, what does it do with them? So it can either recycle and reuse them, or it can excrete the cholesterol into bile and send it into the intestine for elimination. Okay? Now, sometimes there is a reabsorption issue, and cholesterol is reabsorbed from the intestines and sent right back into the liver. And this is the cholesterol not from food. This is the cholesterol that is excreted out by the bile. So this is important. So conditions like constipation can promote this cholesterol reabsorption issue. And now we have a vicious circle. The liver is sending things out, and it's coming right back in. Okay, so this is a problem, and there are labs that we can measure specifically for that to eliminate that that could be the problem for overproduction. Okay, now the last case I want to talk about is Lp(a). Now the production and the quantity of these type of lipid particles are predominantly determined by genetics. Now, high levels are very concerning. Why? Because Lp(a) is different. It carries oxidized phospholipids, And because of that, they're prone to inflammation and oxidative stress. Now, there's also another component. Lp(a) are also what's called thrombogenic. Thrombogenic, okay? Thrombogenic. And thrombogenic means they can promote blood clot. They can promote blood clot formation. Okay, so unless we ask for this lab, we don't get it as part of the standard physical screening. So it's important to get it at least once in your lifetime. You could have normal ApoB numbers and the lipid panel is completely normal. But if Lp(a) or Lp(a) is high, it changes everything. And in that case, artery imaging becomes crucial. Okay, so why am I showing you all this? Because if you go down the medication route, it's important to pinpoint the failure because we have a lot of medications out there and each and every one does something. There are medications for overproduction. There are medications that block certain enzymes for clearance. There are medications that blocks what's called NPC1L1. That's the receptor in the intestines and so forth. So it's very important to work with your cardiologist, with your PCP, to pinpoint where the failure is so you can have your personalized care. So we go to the next slide now, and this is important here. So what I'm showing you here is visceral fat in the midsection, okay? And visceral fat in the midsection of the body has a special relationship with the liver, okay? And visceral fat is the fat surrounding organs, okay? There's a fat around the organs. And the ones that I'm interested in are the ones in the abdominal section, okay? Particularly the intestines, okay? Because much of this fat drains, or much of this visceral fat drains into the liver directly through what's called the portal vein, okay? Now, when we have too much visceral fat and we have insulin resistance, then lipolysis is the breakdown of fat, okay? Lipolysis is suppressed, okay? So when is not suppressed, I should say, okay? So insulin causes visceral fat to pump the brake on releasing free fatty acids. That's what it does. But with insulin resistance, there is no pump in the brake, so visceral fat sends multi-burst of these free fatty acids into the liver. Okay, so there's a condition of too much visceral fat around the midsection, and then you have insulin resistant that is added to that component. Okay, at the same time, I'm showing here IR, or insulin resistance, from the liver front, and it affects the liver too, and you have almost a double whammy here, because when it affects the liver, it causes the liver to overproduce ApoB, or overproduce VLDLs, but eventually they become LDL particles. Okay, so these two conditions are well within our control. Okay, they can be reversed by lifestyle and diet. Okay, so let's look at the cardiovascular tool now. Now let's share that. There you go. Okay, so let's collapse all these just to give you a highlight what this looks like. Okay. So this is a web-based, okay, and it is composed of 5 or 8 engines, okay, or 8 components, okay. And let's just dive into it, and let's take an example and start filling in the data and see how it works. So we're going to ignore the names and dates for now. And let's start with age. Okay, let's say, why is age important? Because cardiovascular risk is a function of age and many variables. Now, age is something that is constant, and there is nothing we can do about it. But many of the variables that I'm going to show you are within our control. All right, so let's say this is, let's say, the waist circumference, which is the body composition. and it helps us estimate visceral fat. Let's say it's 34 for now. Now, if you want to know why this is important, I did put eyes in front of everything, all the labs and everything. So if you want to know why this section is important, you click on the eye here, information, and it shows you why. Okay? Body composition, the connection, the direct connection that it has, so especially in the visceral fat area, to the liver and how it causes the liver to overproduce VLDL and eventually becomes LDL, and it increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but everything here is spelled out. You can screen this thing or pause the video and take a look. Hit return and go back. All right. So let's say the height is 71 and we're going to go fast here. Let's say the weight is 170. Okay, now we go into a liver or lipid component. ApoB, let's say 120. All right, we're not going to fill anything here. Triglycerides, let's say it's under control, 65. All right, and these bottom three, those are for intestines reabsorption. Let's say they are high for now, okay? All right, and if you want to know what this is about, again, you press on this eye, okay? And it shows you why. ApoB is important. This is the path that it takes. This is the pathology, the path that it takes for the disease to develop. Okay, so I'm not going to go over it. You can screen this. It's self-explanatory. I labeled 1, 2, 3, so you can follow with you follow the order, and it shows you exactly what happens and why do we have plaque. Okay, if we have high number of ApoBs. All right, hit return and go back. Now let's look at this other eye here. Okay, this is the excess cholesterol absorption into the liver from the intestines. And that's why those biomarkers are important. The bile sends these cholesterol, gets rid of cholesterol and sends them into the intestines for excretion. But what happens is, if we have this NPC1L1 overactive receptors on the intestines enterocytes, then we absorb them right back into the liver. And we have this vicious circle constantly. We're reabsorbing instead of sending things out via stool. And these are the labs, and you also have them in that lipid panel. So this is the panel that I'm talking about, and these are the labs. All right, this is the intestine reabsorption labs. Lp(a), we're not going to fill it now. Let's say we don't know anything about it for now. Insulin panel, let's say fasting insulin is, and let's say this person has high insulin, okay? So fasting glucose and fasting insulin goes hands in hands. When you do your physical and it's only fasting glucose, it means very little. You really got to know your fasting insulin so you can calculate IR or HOMA-IR or homeostatic insulin resistance. That's what tells us whether you are insulin resistant or not, okay? Inflammation, let's say we have that under control. Okay, inflammation and thyroid. And let's say you want to know why this is important. All right, why thyroid or T3, free T3 is important. Okay, if you have low T3, if you have a condition such as hypothyroidism, all right, then you are affecting the level of clearance. All right, people that have low T3 can have low clearance. All right, low LDL receptors in the liver. All right, and that causes that increases the risk because you have more ApoB circulating now. So it's very important to get that checked. So return and we go back. All right, so we only going to do that, fill up these for now. And GGT is very important. This is, if you want to know what it is, you hover around the eye and it tells you this is a good indicator for oxidative stress. So let's say we'll just keep it at 10 for now. We're not going to fill up the CAC or the genetic intelligence here. All right, family history is important. Let's say this person is sedentary. His diet is high processed, moderate alcohol intake, okay? And that's good enough for now. But if you see a red in front of a component, a lab, that means it is required, okay? So let's calculate the results. All right, so this is the overall risk. This person is high risk. And the reason for that is because high ApoB and his insulin resistance, his waist to height or midsection body composition is under control. The CEC, we didn't do it. We didn't fill it. All right. So the primary driver, the primary cardiovascular risk driver are ApoB and insulin resistance. Okay. And these are just explanation of why. Okay. Anytime I identify something as primary, secondary, I give you the why. And there's another component, which is a lifestyle component. Because of the sedentary alcohol, it adds to it. So I place it here as part of the primary cardiovascular risk driver. Now, the most important part of this intelligence is the lipoprotein mechanism. This is what tells us this is what drills down into the labs and gives us what condition this person has. So for this person, because of those labs, he is most likely suffering from impaired clearance plus cholesterol absorption. And the reason for that is because, go back up here, you'll see that we picked high absorption biomarkers, high cholesterol absorption biomarkers, 2 out of 3. So he got flagged, okay? So he got flagged for absorption issue as well as clearance issue. Okay, he didn't get flagged for overproduction, and the reason for that is because his TG was low and his waist to height circumference was low, was optimal, okay, which means low central adiposity. All right, so he got flagged for clearance. So if he goes down the medication route, okay, his medication needs to be customized and needs to be personalized based off of to fix impaired clearance and increase cholesterol absorption from the intestines. This is the evidence that I use. Everything is automated. All you need is the labs, and it does everything for you. All right. Now, the genetic, we didn't fill anything out, so there's nothing to report. All right. Now, the artery wall. This is the artery wall story. What we have is a situation of ApoB, high elevated ApoB, high insulin resistance, and lifestyle components that are contributing possibly to plaque formation. All right. This comes very important when we do CAC measurement. All right. So now the nutrition recommendation. Top 3 goals are to lower ApoB particle burden, okay? Support ApoB clearance and reduce reabsorption from the intestines. How are we going to do that? These are the guidelines, all right? So these are the reasons why they were triggered, first and foremost. And first things, we start with food to eliminate, all right? Before we talk about food to add, we talk about food to eliminate. All right, so this is not a meal plan. This is just a guideline to share with your functional medical doctor, with your clinician, whoever you're working with, so they can customize their meal plans based off of these recommendations. Okay, insulin sensitivity, we need to take care of that. And the reason for that is because HOMA-IR was high, fasting insulin was high, foods to limit, foods to emphasize, and expected result. All right. If you follow this is the expected result. Okay. Now, cholesterol absorption strategies, these again, same thing. Okay. Lifestyle delivery modifiers, physical activities, diet. And the reason for that is because the person has filled out sedentary lifestyle plus alcohol plus a bunch of things. So alcohol is flagged, diet pattern, physical activity. Why these are recommended? These are the reasons, okay? Now, supplements. Now, this is a key point here. Prioritize food supplements only when needed and supported by biomarkers, all right? So food is first, these supplements are not to replace or trade in the food. No, these are when you get the labs and something needs to be fixed or needs an intervention, then you use supplements if food does not achieve results. Okay, but for the most part, we do achieve positive results with food. All right, so labs to retest. All right, repeat these biomarkers in the that failed before or got flagged, okay? And these other recommendations, all right? I'm not going to go over each and every one of them. But all in all, it tells us what each ApoB, it's 90%, okay, of the risk is driven by ApoB, insulin-resistant lifestyle, and body composition, as you can see, is low, okay? The reason lifestyle was weighted, these are the reasons, and these are the references, okay? But the good thing about this tool is you can generate reports. You can plug in your numbers and export reports, and these are your reports right here. All right, and you can take that with you to your primary care and work with them and have a healthy conversations and try to work with them on customizing your therapy so it's customized and personalized and precise. All right, so let's do something else now. Let's keep this case, all right, and let's say this person, for example, did a CAC test, and his CAC came up 134, and plaque severity via CCTA was moderate, all right? And let's also give it some genetic components. Let's say he did Lp(a), and it came up high, okay? And let's say, yeah, let's just do that for now and see what it does. All right, so this is right now, because of that Lp(a), his risk is to the roof. Okay, his risk is to the roof because of the CAC came up moderate, okay, and Lp(a). So let's see what the tool does. So the tool, what it's telling us is plaque imaging burden is present. So there is no assessing the risk anymore because the disease is here, okay? So this reflects current disease burden, not the upstream cause. And the primary driver is established plaque disease burden, okay? It was already established. And the second driver is elevated Lp(a), okay? That's high risk, okay? So, of course, you have other components like insulin resistance and lifestyle and such. All right, now let's see what the mechanism does. Okay, this is still impaired clearance and impaired cholesterol absorption. All right, and as always, now the genetic component has flagged measured Lp(a) is elevated and suggests genetically mediated cardiovascular risk. Okay, now let's look at the artery wall. So the artery wall says that we have too much ApoB and we have an Lp(a) associated plaque risk, and it gives us a bunch of recommendations: glucose, insulin resistant lifestyle, already established plaque disease burden, and plaque stabilization goal. All right, now the therapy is around stabilizing this plaque so it does not progress. Nutrition recommendation is going to be, okay, stabilizing existing plaque and reduce future plaque, all right, lowering ApoB particle and reducing cholesterol absorption. So everything is based off of the labs. So the more labs we have, the more accuracy we get, all right? Now, these are personalized nutrition, okay? And it's going to be around plaque stabilization, and this is what we need: lifestyle modifiers, okay? All right. So imaging follow-up. So the follow-up now is going to be based on Lp(a) and imaging follow-up. And this is more of a summary. All right. And let's change one more thing here. Let's do something else. Let's challenge this, and let's say, let's add some genetic components. let's say this person has alleles of E4, E4. He has this, he's got some, let's see, some absorption genetic susceptibility. All right. So these genetics here, just to talk about it a little bit, they back up the labs. All right. So it's not by themselves. You know, it's not, we don't make decisions just by we do have the lab. We need the labs, and then we need the genetic, and then we can make decision based on the two. All right. So let's see, let's say this person did ferritin test and it came up low. Let's see if this gets flagged. And let's say free T3, 2.0, or let's say 1.0, something low just to test it. All right. So the risk obviously is very high for these reasons. All right. And plaque and imaging remains number one. Now, the reason for this particular case is just to see how it reacts to those genetic components that I've added and the biomarkers, vitamin D and ferritin being low. So here are the genetic part, all right? And it gives you a recommendation. It tells you first what they mean, all right? They've all been flagged here, all right? Now, when they're flagged, okay, what does it do with them? All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. First, let's see if anything changes here. Yeah, so this is the nutrition recommendation based off of those genetics. All right. And everything here, it tells you why. All right, so nothing is random. Everything has a reason for why it was flagged. Okay. Now, this is important now. All right, because it is flagging the vitamin D, it's flagging free T3s, and it's asking you to retest as a follow-up. So it's flagging everything that is abnormal. All right. So this is important now. Okay. Imaging follow-up, repeating CCCA when clinically appropriate. So, and again, the most important thing that you can get an accurate result quickly, and you can print out the report and export it and work with your cardiologist or your primary care. So, and here it's just, if you don't want to navigate this panel here, you just, it just helps you. It's a dashboard, so it helps you go directly to what you're looking for. If you just want overall, if you want to look at the primary driver, right there, so you're not scrolling up and down too much. Okay. All right. Let's see one more thing here. Let's say this person has high triglycerides this time. Let's see how the engine operates from determining. All right, so see how now the engine is flagging it as overproduction issue, plus obviously increased cholesterol absorption. So overproduction because he's got high TG, he's got insulin resistance, all right, and high amount of ApoB. So those three call for overproduction instead of clearance. All right, so things change. All right, and that's about it. That's all I have, folks. Thank you so much and have a good day.